Hello my friends, I'm Brett Larkin. Welcome to my channel, and especially huge welcome if you're new. I teach yoga and meditation here on YouTube at least once a week, completely free classes, including prenatal classes if you're pregnant and watching this. And this is my birth story. I know that when I was pregnant, I loved listening and watching birth stories. I'd listen to birth story podcasts, and I would watch them on YouTube, and I found it really, really interesting. My baby boy's 9 months, or almost 9 months at the time this video is coming out. And 9 months to make a baby, him being born, and now him hitting that 9-month mark. I wanted to put a video out there that also just had some pictures, and there's definitely some intimate moments shared on this video, so if you don't want to see any birth pictures, there's nothing too graphic, but just know that that's coming. So if that's not something you're comfortable with, you might want to stop watching. If you're watching this, you're probably pregnant, and I know what I really wanted to know sitting in your shoes was like, what does it feel like? What does birth feel like? Because you do all this preparation, or maybe you're contemplating what preparation you want to do. And I also have a prenatal course called Pregnant and Powerful. I'll talk more about that later. For me, I was expecting birth to be painful, because that's what you hear a lot about, right, is pain. But I think the big thing I want to share is that it really, for me, just felt like period cramps. That early labor, it just feels like cramping. And how I knew I was in labor. So to back up, everyone told me, this was my first baby, and I was expecting a baby boy. So leave me a comment below right now and tell me if you're expecting a boy or a girl, or if you don't know yet and how pregnant you are. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. But I was expecting a little boy, and everyone told me that your first pregnancy, you usually deliver late. So to not really listen to the due date. The due dates don't mean anything. They don't really know. It's kind of like a guideline. So don't get attached to the due date. That's a good first tip. And that labor's long. So those are the two things that everyone just kept telling me. You're going to go past your due date, and labor is really, really, really long. Other backstory you need to know is that I really, really was hoping to have a home birth. I just thought it would be so amazing to be in the comfort of my home and to be able to sort of have privacy in my birthing experience. That being said, I knew that birth is something I've never been through. I didn't know what to expect. So I wanted to also be comfortable going to the hospital as well. So I really planned for both scenarios. I paid out of pocket for a midwife, which was really expensive, but I figured even if we ended up going to the hospital, should sort of just be like this super doula who could come with us. And if I ended up feeling comfortable and like I wanted to deliver at home, I could, because she could handle that. And at the same time, I toured our local hospital and made sure that I was pre-registered and all set up to go to the hospital too. So I'd really advise that as a great strategy. Home birth is controversial. It's very likely that a lot of members of your family won't support a home birth. They'll think it's dangerous. Again, you need to do your own research and follow your heart. But I think what worked really well for me was just being super prepared for both. While being prepared for both didn't mean that I wasn't manifesting and thinking about the birth I wanted. And I guess that's my big second tip, is to connect with your baby during pregnancy. Because I think a lot of women think that birth is like this thing they do or they can control. In my experience, it was more like this natural disaster, like a thing that happened to me that I survived, happily survived. But to think that you can control it is just, I don't know, I'd steer away from that. And then I think a lot of women forget that your baby is your partner in this dance of birth. And in my prenatal course, I talk a lot about your baby's position in the pelvis and how to try to get baby in the optimum position through yoga, and then how to strengthen your mindset through meditation and Kundalini yoga in particular, to tap into your intuition and use that to connect with your baby. Because I think if you're connecting regularly with your baby, and by that I mean taking time to meditate or taking time out of your regular day in life to like channel and connect with your womb space, you're gonna get messages and insights from your baby. And if you think that sounds woo-woo and crazy, that's fine. I was skeptical at first too, But when you really tap into your baby and you feel that connection, you can ask your baby, like, how are they feeling? Where do they want to be born? How do they want to be born? And I would ask my baby questions like that all the time, and I'd never get a concrete answer. But what I did get was a sense that my baby was very strong. He was always sending me messages that he was incredibly strong. That was always the energy I was getting from him. That he was very strong, that he was stronger than me even, and that I didn't need to worry about anything. So I even have, I think it's a Free Your Fear of Labor meditation or class free here on YouTube. Check that one out. I think that's one of the ones where I actually have you kind of dialogue with your baby, and you can do it as a relaxation, just lying down. But that's what I would always hear from my baby, is that he was strong. And so I kind of, going into birth, at least had that. I was still scared. I still didn't know what to expect, but I had that, and that was reassuring. So that's sort of the stage going into the birth. And because everyone told me I would deliver past my due date and that labor would be extremely long, I didn't initially think that I was in labor, because it was 10 days prior to my due date, 10 days early. My husband and I had actually attended our first and only birthing class earlier that day. I took a very intensive, like over 100 hours prenatal yoga certification and kind of birthing course. When I was putting out my Pregnant and Powerful prenatal course, obviously I did a ton of research and study before I put together that program. So I felt like I had a ton of birth education under my belt. So this sort of extra birthing class, I was really going to just for my husband. I was like, I want him to know how to massage me and take care of me during birth. So that's why we went to like this one class. And it was a great class. They had us like do partner work and, teach us different positions to labor in. My husband thinks that something about going to that class and kind of touching each other and getting in some of these labor positions sort of jump-started or stimulated the birth to start happening, or for labor to begin. Who knows? But that's what happened earlier in the day. And then I felt very tired and wanted to take a nap. And I don't nap. Like, I'm literally someone who just doesn't nap. I've never napped. Even in really early pregnancy, I didn't nap. And I went home and I took a nice long nap, which I think is very interesting. I think it was like my body knew that things were coming and we needed to rest. And then we went to sleep that night. And right before we went to bed, I mentioned to my husband that things felt a little different, that instead of feeling kind of contractions, because your body does these practice contractions up here in my belly, I was feeling them kind of lower, if you can see, like lower down here. And I hadn't felt like cramping down there, like period cramps, like I said at the beginning, like period cramps. I hadn't felt those before at any point throughout pregnancy. So I was like, my body's probably preparing to have a baby in 10 days, which is, makes perfect sense. So I went to bed and I kept waking up, going to the bathroom, waking up, going to the bathroom. I had the sensation of having to poop, which is very common in labor. But I was totally in denial. I was just like, I'm gonna move around in the bathroom, and I, got my yoga blocks in the bathroom, and I was kind of moving. But I thought that I was just like constipated or had eaten something weird. Because it was 10 days early, it never occurred to me that it could be labor. If anything, I was just like, oh, the baby's moving position, or something's happening that's making it really hard to sleep. But what was great was because it was the middle of the night, I just go to the bathroom, kind of move around, go back to bed, sleep for an hour or two, wake up, have to go to the bathroom. And this is not unusual, because in the late stages of pregnancy, you're getting up all the time at night to have to pee anyway. Finally, I look at the clock, maybe third or fourth time this has happened, and it's early. It's like 5:30 or 6 in the morning. And I was like, what, it's early enough. Maybe it was 6 or 6:30 in the morning. Anyway, I was like, early enough to get up. I'm gonna, take a hot bath and see if that sort of helps whatever's going on. So I got in the bathtub with a book, like as if I'm gonna have this like relaxing bath, reading and whatever. And things started to intensify. I started to feel more uncomfortable. My husband popped in and I was like, I think this maybe could be labor, not sure. I told him to just like go walk our dog. He had, there was some family stuff we had going on, so he had some phone calls to make related to that. So I just sort of sent him on his way, and I spent probably the next 45 minutes or so, just in the bath, kind of experiencing the contractions intensify to the point where it started to feel scary, in the sense that there was a lot of pain, pain sensation, just like kind of like my body was seizing up. And then I'd, catch my breath in between. So I was sort of alternating from the bathtub to sitting on the toilet. That's where I felt really comfortable. And I hear that from a lot of women, that sitting on the toilet is a very comfortable place to labor. Feels familiar. It's also good to sit on the toilet because it's like where your body's comfortable releasing, and then kind of moving around on the bathroom floor. But the contractions started to intensify to the point where I was like, okay, I think that I'm probably gonna have a baby today. Oh my goodness. And I did not feel ready. I had planned to stop working about 10 days before my due date. So I had stuff planned. I was winding down, but I had a whole thing of stuff planned to do that day. So it was a shock for me. Like, oh my gosh, this is gonna happen 10 days earlier than I thought. Oh boy. So my husband comes back from this 30-40 minute walk, and I'm in the bathtub, like in labor, like pretty intense. So again, we thought we might have a baby, that day, that this was the beginning of a very long process, because people told me labor is very long. We like downloaded, or I downloaded, a contraction app on my phone to start sort of timing how far apart the contractions were. But I like got very frustrated very quickly because the app just didn't work right, and I felt like I couldn't time them accurately. And also the app was telling me crazy things, like my contractions were very close together. And I remembered that you were supposed to call your midwife at, think about going to the hospital at 411. I don't even remember what that stands for anymore. But I mean, I think it's like when your contractions are steadily, regularly a certain intervals apart. And I was way ahead of that. Like my contractions were way closer together than that. So I was just like totally confused. I was just like, maybe this isn't even labor. In retrospect, denial is a huge thing that gets women through labor. I have since learned that. So I'm in complete denial. I just stop even using the app because I'm just like, it's not lining up with anything I've been taught. These are coming on so fast, so furious. And honestly, I used Kundalini yoga to get me through these contractions because they just took over. They took over my body. I'm really impressed with women who say that they've done hypnobirthing or can do hypnobirthing, because that like implies that you are controlling or able to breathe. I mean, these contractions that I was having were like knocking the wind out of me. It was very scary. And what got me through was, thinking about Kundalini yoga. Like in Kundalini yoga, which again is one of the primary forms of yoga we explore in my Pregnant and Powerful course, you do a lot of challenging things, like holding your arms out to the side for a really long amount of times, or things that really trigger you to see how you respond and react when your body is in a state of extreme discomfort. And I think it was all my experience with Kundalini that really helped me handle and get through all these contractions. Eventually, I'm out of the bathtub. I'm sitting on the bathroom floor. I had a couple really big ones. And at that point, my husband's like, we should call the midwife. And I'm like, okay. And again, the whole time, I didn't want to be that person who called the midwife too soon. So I was like, let's wait. But then it got really intense. And I remember I had a contraction where I was on the bathroom floor holding my husband's jeans or pants, whatever he was wearing, and screamed so loud that I pulled his pants off, basically. That's how hard I pulled. So really, really intense. And we called the midwife, and she is, like, oh, I happen to be in my car going to a meditation class. I'll swing by the house and listen to the baby's heart rate for you, kind of see where you're at. So she just sort of volunteered to come by. So that was great. Meanwhile, I'm experiencing a lot of sensation, really intense. The contractions are just getting stronger and stronger. I sit on the toilet, I'm trying to regain my breath, and I have a really big contraction, and that's when I felt something like move out of my body. And I literally screamed at my husband, something is coming out of me, just because I felt just so scared and overwhelmed, and I just felt something moving. And I was like, you need to look. So I kind of like lift myself off the toilet seat, have him look, And what he saw was actually my bag of waters. But for what him it looked like was just like this bulgy sack, and he thought the top of our baby's head was like deformed or something. So he's just like, I'm gonna call the midwife back. So he calls the midwife back. Brett, something's coming out of Brett. We don't know what it is. And she's like, okay, well, put me on FaceTime. And she's like, okay, stick the phone up underneath her. So he does. And meanwhile, we see her. She's just like driving in her car, super calm, cool, collected. And she's like, yeah, that's the bag of waters. That means that the baby's probably gonna come really soon. Jake, that's my husband's name. She's like, Jake, can you get Brett off the toilet and onto all fours? And Jake's like, okay. And I'm like, I can't get on all fours. I just like didn't want to move. I did not want to leave the toilet. You know, he kind of helps me and we got me on all fours. So I'm kind of just holding the bathtub on all fours. Meanwhile, we're balancing the phone on like a bunch of yoga blocks that I had brought into the bathroom. Our gigantic German Shepherd dog is in the bathroom with us, barking his head off. He'd been barking this whole time because he had heard me screaming. The midwife's kind of telling us stuff through the phone, but we can't hear anything she's saying because the dog is barking. And I have another really huge contraction and my baby just comes out. The next thing I heard was a gush of water, like the bag of waters coming out, breaking and crying. And my baby was in my son's arms, thankfully. But I'm just hearing all of this. I knew I needed to turn around, but I just couldn't. I mean, I was so out of breath and in shock. And I also knew that when I turned around, like my life would never be the same, that I would be a mom for real when I turned around. So I remember I took a good couple breaths. And then when I finally did turn around, it was like my son was in my husband's arms. He was crying. He was healthy. The dog was still barking and, you know, making a ton of noise. The midwife was still on FaceTime saying stuff. We couldn't hear anything she said. And my husband handed my son to me, and I mean, you can't describe a moment like that. I mean, it was life-changing. It's really the only word for it. And you know, it was just a funny moment, you know, like I didn't hold him right away. I was just like looking at my husband like, oh my gosh. And my husband, I think, wanted to put the dog in the kennel, or he was like, oh my God, I'm gonna hold the phone. And he started walking away with the baby, but the umbilical cord was still attached. So I was like, wait, no. So that's when he handed the baby to me, put the dog in the kennel, was talking to the midwife, you know, like figuring out what to do. It was crazy. It was crazy. Birth is amazing. But luckily, the midwife was already on her way because she was going to come check the baby's heart rate, and now she could do that, but with the baby outside my body. And so I just stayed in our bathroom, like on the bathroom floor, right where I gave birth, holding my son, until the midwife got there. And she got there probably 15 minutes later, and then she was there, and then it was amazing. And she like helped me to bed. She took all the baby's vitals, did his whole newborn checkup, did my checkup, did like my cleanup, my stitches, like all my care just in our bedroom. It was so amazing. I then birthed the placenta in our bed, in our bedroom. And she took care of all of that and gave us a tour of the placenta, showed us the tree of life. And I mean, it was just such an intimate experience, and I felt so grateful to be having that experience and all this time taken in our home. I'm sure it would have worked out well at the hospital too. I mean, we never would have made it to the hospital. I had a 90-minute labor, which is basically unheard of, especially for a first-time mom. So I think I'm just a freak. I don't know if it was all the yoga and just all the alignment work, positioning work that I did. A lot of that is detailed in the course. I don't know if it was that or just genetics, luck, something else. I don't know, but my labor was very fast. It was painful. It felt like the most intense period cramps of my life that knocked the wind out of me, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But again, the Kundalini yoga and that mindset work really helped me get through it. Now, that being said, if I had been in that state, and I remember thinking this in the bathtub for, I think 6 hours would probably be like the max that I could handle that. Maybe 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours. That would probably be the max. And that would take like everything I had out of me, like every amount of courage, every piece of energy to last 4 or 6 hours. Luckily, what I was experiencing was already like transition, like the end of labor, kind of the pushing part. I just didn't know that. But I do know women who have to deal with that period of labor, that phase of labor for like 4 to 6 to 8 hours. And I don't know if I could have done that, drug-free like I did. I think I would have tried. I think I would have made it 4 or 6, and then I think I would have broken down. And I remember thinking that in the bathtub and being scared and thinking, if this is something I have to do for, 4 to 6 hours, I think I might need pain medication or help. I think my biggest message is that labor is different for every single woman and every single mom and baby pair. Even women that have had multiple children, they'll tell you that none of their labors were alike. You never really know what it's going to be like, which I think is why doing mindset work that just helps you deal with uncertainty, helps you deal with discomfort, is really the best way to go. So whether it's my prenatal course, the Pregnant and Powerful course, where I talk again a lot about getting in touch with your intuition, the chakra system, your aura as it relates to birth and pregnancy, and tons of videos. There's also 4 postpartum audio lectures because I felt like I wanted to share about the postpartum period that doesn't get talked about enough. So whether it's my course or some other course, like pick something that's going to help you with your mindset work, and I'd say cultivating intuition, because I think that's really the biggest thing you can do to prepare. I don't think you can learn a breathing technique or like something like that to prepare, because again, birth kind of like takes over your body. And I say that that's my opinion. I know other women have done like hypnobirthing and found it really effective. I listened to a couple hypnobirthing or that like kind of style thing tapes early in pregnancy, and I found it relaxing, but I'm really glad I didn't do it or stick with it, because there's no way it would have helped me with my birth, or at least the birth I had. It's different for everyone, and it's worth it. It's so worth it. All you want is a healthy baby. However you want to do it, just trust your gut. You're the mom, you're in charge. Your body's so strong, your body's so wise. You know what's best. And I honestly believe that if my baby was sending me signals that he wasn't strong, or he was in distress, or that something was off, I would know that, and I'd make different choices. As it turned out, like I didn't have to make any choices because he just like exited himself 10 days early in our home, like with literally no assistance. Guys, thank you so much for being here and watching all the way to the very end. If you're still watching, leave me a heart emoji in the comments below so I know you're still here and saw the whole thing. And if you're interested in checking out another really inspirational, positive birth story, go watch Sarah Beth's birth story. I'll link it in the cards and the description box down below. She's another awesome yoga channel here on YouTube and mom of 2, so I definitely suggest checking out her video, and don't forget to subscribe to both our channels. If my story helped or impacted you in any way, I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. If you're pregnant, let me know how pregnant you are and if you're expecting a boy or a girl. I want to connect with you and I want to answer all your questions. I'm sending you so much love from my heart to yours. Namaste. I explored so many programs while earning my 100+ hours of prenatal yoga certification. Most of them were dogmatic. They pushed one right way of doing things. It's a well-intentioned approach, but to me, it's the opposite of what yoga is about. Non-judgment and empowering women to find and create their own unique path. This program is about tapping into the inner wisdom that's already deep within you. You'll innately know which experts and which methods you want to follow, if any. Honor yourself and your baby with the gift of this special course. We'll see you on the other side.